You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com, Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com, and Henry the Flowmaster Schwartz from FUBO. The Option Block is brought to you by FUBO. FUBO's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cbo.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of CBOE Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively CBOE. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the CBOE products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again for actually the second time here now for the new year on the old program, but our first Monday episode of the new year here on the old OB. And if you've been listening to the show for a while, the Monday episode, a special. Every episode is special. They're all very special episodes of Blossom. Thursdays, we have the Flowmaster and all that fun. But Monday is reserved for Trivia Madness, as the kids call it. And it was a mad one. We'll get to all that fun in a second. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from the network upon which all of you were binged and mainlined all of my bandwidth in 2024. Don't worry, we got more lined up for you in 2025. We appreciate all of you who engaged with the network in any capacity throughout the year. We literally couldn't do it without you folks out there. Of course, if you want more in your lives, you know where to go, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. Welcome to all of you folks who joined us on the pro side during the holiday season. I'm remiss in welcoming the pro folks. I should do that more often. Welcome to you new members and you existing members. We love you all over there. Theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to join the fun. Some fun things in store for that as well in 2025. You got to stay tuned. Check out the pro to learn more as we check out who's joining us on this first Monday edition of the old OB for 2025. Yes, I am joined by the dynamic duo of the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, as well as by the rockingest of lobsters, Mr. Andrew Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. Gentlemen, Welcome back for the first Monday episode. Are you feeling in fine form after a full year of trivia challenges?
Always in fine form. Very excited.
I believe Mr. Tosaw is ready to go. I myself am ready to go.
All right, well, you're going to have to be ready to go to bask in a year's worth of trivia. All right, here we go. All right, listeners. 2024, a mad year, a wild year by many different stretches, by many different metrics, including by our proprietary 80s Trivia Challenge metric. Let's run down some of these wild metrics, shall we? At the end of the end, we shall reveal our 2024 80s Trivia Champion. Now, let's kick it off as we did about exactly a year ago, listeners. No game like we're doing today because we broke down the results of the previous year. No show in the middle of January, obviously, for the holidays there. Then Tosaw kicked it off late January with our first points on the board, appropriately enough for guessing the He-Man theme. What better theme song than a little bit of He-Man? What personifies the 80s more than, dare I say it, He-Man? Jacked. Everyone's jacked. Even the skeletons are jacked for some reason. No flesh on the face, but muscles aplenty everywhere else. That's the 80s in a nutshell. And then more stuff, fun stuff going on into February. Tosaw kicking it into. So at the end of January, our score was 1-0 Tosaw. Uncle Mike, how were you feeling at that point? Feeling good?
Oh, feeling great.
Taking an early, not quite commanding lead, but an early lead. Rock Lobster, as we know, takes a while to get warmed up, listener. So he was doing just that to start the year. February comes in, first week of February. Tosaw going half point for guessing the movie Predator correctly, as well as additional half point for the famous quote from that film, "I ain't got time to bleed." Tosaw runs away with a full point there. That, of course, being, I think, the title of the Jesse the Body autobiography. He stole that line. He liked it so much. So synonymous with Predator and with Jesse the Body forevermore. So at that point, Tosaw takes a 2-point lead there. Then we go out. Andrew fights back finally. Andrew gets on the board with Joe Montana. He got Joe Montana correct. President's Day, we were off, so no trivia that week. Then the week after that, Uncle Mike coming in, getting a point for the MASH finale. And then coming back again, we sprinkled a little bit of wrestling in there, guessing Virgil. No, not the poet, listeners. The wrestler who I believe passed away around that time, which is why he was the subject of our game. So the middle of March, Uncle Mike was moving out to an early lead. Andrew at least was on the board 4-1. Mr. Rock Lobster, at this point, middle of March, you're already down 4-1. What were you feeling, sir?
I was feeling I needed some kind of question. I seemed like I felt like I whiffed a lot of gettable questions, except, of course, for the He-Man one. Just Tosaw beat me early, but I felt like those were questions I could have answered, I feel.
Yeah, you had a shot in all of them, maybe with the exception of Virgil. I don't think you knew the $1 Million Man's valet. But outside of that, you probably had a chance. You probably had a chance on that one. All right, let's keep rolling, listeners, into mid to late March. The NCAA tournament was on. That was the subject of our question in mid-March. No points. Everybody swung and a miss on that one. Uncle Mike coming in, getting a half point the week after that. Then Easter kicking in, no holiday. Then we went to War Games. And Uncle Mike, actually, no, Andrew, the Rock Lobster, taking a point there, guessing War Games correctly. And Uncle Mike getting a half point for guessing the name of the game they played on that show, on that movie, I should say, which is Global Thermonuclear War. So at the end of, I should say, the middle of April, it was now 5-2, Uncle Mike. As we keep on rolling, then Andrew steals a point for Blade Runner on tax day, of all days. And then Uncle Mike comes back swinging hard a week later with a full 1.5 points for his beloved Knight Rider, guessing the name of the car kit, and guessing that you don't hassle the Hoff. So a full 1.5 points for Uncle Mike. Just Uncle Mike roaring back. Our totals at the end of April, 6.5 points, Uncle Mike, to 3 Rock Lobster. Mr. Uncle Mike, at that point, I mean, must have been feeling pretty good, especially with that big Hasselhoff Knight Rider comeback, sir.
I mean, how Hasselhoff doesn't make you feel good, I don't know.
All I know is you don't hassle the Hoff, kids. You don't hassle the Hoff. Coming back early May, Uncle Mike. Oh, yes. This was your epic 2-hour Patriots rant. Do you recall this, Uncle Mike, May 6th? You got 1 point for your Tony Eason, Steve Grogan, and as we put in the notes, epic Patriots rant. You went on for like 20 minutes. Do you recall this, Uncle Mike?
Yeah, the mid-'80s Patriots. I mean, that was something to where, there's certain things that come out of my head that kind of surprise me, quite honestly, and that's one of them.
Yes, very impressive indeed. So after that, it was 7.5-3 for Uncle Mike, still maintaining his lead. The Rock Lobster comes back swinging, though, mid-May with Cabbage Patch. Cabbage Patch Kids. There you go, pulling one out of his pants there. So he gets a full point and another point on May 20th for the Macho Man. We all know it's the one wrestler Rock Lobster can name. So we have in the notes here, Tosaw takes umbrage. That was the first time that we saw the dark side of Uncle Mike. He didn't like that the subject was Macho Man, which was, shall we say, a little bit easier for the Rock Lobster to win in the 80s Trivia Challenge. So at the end of May now, we're talking 7.5 points for Uncle Mike. Rock Lobster closing in with 5, thanks in part to that Uncle Mike umbrage point for for Macho Man. Mr. Rock Lobster, were you feeling good at Uncle Mike's umbrage at this point, sir?
Well, you like to get into his head and live rent free if you can. So any time you can do that, you got to enjoy it while you have it.
All right, so now we're moving into summertime, listeners. Notoriously a quiet period for the options market, but a hot time for trivia. We skipped off, obviously, Memorial Day. We had the week after that, first week of June. Both these guys swung and missed on Godzilla. No joy for Godzilla there. The 10th, Andrew comes back. His beloved Trivial Pursuit. He did get a half a point for Trivial Pursuit. And then he got an additional full point because I said, can you name all of the colors of original 80s Trivial Pursuit? And he did. So he got 1.5 points on June 10th. One of the biggest days maybe ever for the Rock Lobster. So now coming into the middle of June, the Rock Lobster closing in to within spitting distance. It is now 6.5 points for the Rock Lobster, 7.5 for Uncle Mike. Mr. Rock Lobster, at this point, did you think you had it? Did you think you could take the lead, sir?
I thought I did have a chance. I was feeling better. It was kicking into gear. We had Tosaw's back on his heels a little bit. But ultimately, it's like golf. It is a Sunday, and he still had like a 6-shot lead. So he had to falter, and it just wasn't. It didn't happen to the end of the year. But I think I got stronger toward the end of the year.
You had a moment there. As we keep on rolling, Uncle Mike comes back. He gets a full point for Choose Your Own Adventure, which is always a fun one, and another icon of the 80s. He came back again late June here. I guess we did another Knight Rider. That's probably on me. I shouldn't have done 2. I know that's Uncle Mike's strong point. So there you go. The Rock Lobster can take umbrage at that, the way Uncle Mike took umbrage at the Macho Man. So Uncle Mike gets another free point with the Knight Rider. So now coming into the beginning of July, it is 9.5 points for Uncle Mike and 6.5 for the Rock Lobster. So Rock Lobster's hope starting to fade there. July 1st, going into the July 4th holiday, obviously, Uncle Mike 1 full point for Thomas Jefferson dying on the 4th of July. Half point for Andrew for also correctly guessing that John Adams also died on the 4th of July. So now we're at 10.5 points for for Uncle Mike versus 7 for the Rock Lobster. And then coming out of the 4th of July weekend, Uncle Mike scoring a point for LA Law, a very interesting one, and a half point for Harry Hamlin. So going a full 1.5 points for Uncle Mike. Now we're up to 12-7 for Uncle Mike. Tosaw comes back again, 15th. I think this was with all the madness out there in Pennsylvania with Trump. We have 1.5 points for the Reagan assassination attempt, the actual date of it, and also the guy who got shot, which was, of course, Brady, aka the Brady Bill. So 1.5 points for Tosaw. So Tosaw starting to pull away. Now 13.5-7 in mid-July. We had the Option Pit live event after that, so no show then, because we actually gave Uncle Mike his award for the previous year. A pretty sweet award, if I do say so myself. He went IC Crazy, which is, of course, the most prestigious belt. Anyone knows 80s wrestling. Everyone knows. It's all about the IC belt. 29th, we also had, they both swung and missed. That was when Deadpool and Wolverine came out. So we had the comic origins of Wolverine and Deadpool, and neither of these guys knew anything about that. So both swing and a miss. August 5th, as you might imagine, I was actually traveling, and we were doing a remote show from the Hall of Fame conference room, literally in the Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. And it was a mad day, market sell-off. So there was no trivia that day. We kind of more had an emergency show talking about all the madness that was going on. We came back a week later, 2 points to Uncle Mike. I had just come from the epic Metallica 2-day concert there in Soldier Field. Uncle Mike named every 80s Metallica album, so he got a full 2 points after that. And then the week after that, of course, it was DNC time in Chicago. Tosaw got a half point for naming that Clinton won the 96 convention in Chicago. So the total points coming out of that, coming into the end of August, 16-7. So at this point, Uncle Mike, I think you probably started to feel like you had it in the bag, sir. 16-7. It's a pretty commanding lead, end of August.
I was feeling pretty confident. We were going into expiration week, and I was just trying to see if we can get some time decay to go down. That's kind of how I was feeling.
Well, I think we were trying to make it more competitive here because the next week, the Rock Lobster gets 1.5 points for correctly naming the capital of his now home state, Maine, as well as the Maine Lobster a half point. So he gets 1.5 points. And then a week or two later, we were off for obviously Labor Day. We got a point for naming The Fall Guy, the TV show, and then a half point for Lee Major. So now Andrew coming a little bit closer. It's now 16-10 in the middle of September, listeners. Andrew, Rock Lobster strikes again. September 16th, correctly naming The American Werewolf in London. And then they both swing and a miss the week after that. No points for anybody. Tosaw comes back a week after that, end of September, with Magnum P.I. One more point for that. He had been guessing Magnum P.I. throughout the year multiple times. It seemed only right, only reasonable to actually make it one of our questions of the week this year. So Uncle Mike finally got his points for Magnum P.I. that he had been trying to get all year long. Coming back early October now, we go back to 80s TV. Uncle Mike getting a half point for the MacGyver theme. And then Columbus Day rolls around, and we have a big debate about Columbus discovering America, all that kind of fun. Uncle Mike gets a 1 point there, full point as well, for correctly naming the year that Columbus discovered America, 1492, which we subsequently proved through he with his own kids, me with my own kids, and just engaging with kids in general, that no kid today knows that date. They don't teach that at all in school anymore. Say what you will about Columbus. Pretty garbage guy, to be quite honest. But the date America was quote-unquote discovered, probably a day kids should learn about at the very least. But I digress. 21st, we have the Rock Lobster getting a point for Beetlejuice, and then coming back strong again to end October, a full point for correctly guessing the movie Halloween. So now we're at 18.5, and Rock Lobster still losing, but closing a little bit closer with 13 points. Mr. Rock Lobster, coming out of Halloween, coming into the election, did you feel you had a snowball's chance, or was it already done for you, sir?
It was tough. I thought I had a chance, but I just needed too many 1.5 winners. I needed a month straight. I had a couple of runs there, but I felt like because we had holidays coming up, I think I just ran out of time.
We tried to give you a few that you swung and missed on, or Uncle Mike stole from you, as you'll see in a couple of weeks here. First off, coming out of the election, we had election-themed trivia. Uncle Mike got 1 point for the 1984 election, and then Rock Lobster getting a full point as well. So we got 2 points for getting correctly Mondale's home state, the only state that he won. Yes, so a lot of election fun there. A week later, tried to give Rock Lobster at least a lifeline, and we went with This Old House, and guess what? Uncle Mike got the point for This Old House, and a half point for Bob Villa. So Uncle Mike, you just stuck the dagger in when you got the This Old House points. Those are supposed to be Rock Lobster. That was it, points.
By the way.
At that point, yeah, the game
mentally, that crushed me there.
Yeah, that broke you.
Yeah,
when you couldn't get the king of woodworking, that was the end for you, sir.
That was it. I guess no excuses after that.
And then it just kind of went downhill from there. There we go. We lost our theme there. All right, so yeah, Uncle Mike getting 1 point for Mike Tyson's Punch-Out and 1 point for Glass Joe. So a full 2 points for Uncle Mike there. Rock Lobster swinging back with a great 80s film, The Highlander. There can be only one. 1 point for him. So end of November now, we're at 23 points for Uncle Mike, 15 for the Rock Lobster. And then we kicked off December with Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, also 1 point for Tosaw. And then Uncle Mike are swinging back again, another epic 80s theme song. We did our audio daily double with the G.I. Joe theme. He crushed that one as well. Also coming back one more time for another point for Jesse the Body Ventura, guessing who was on Saturday night's main event, who they brought back. Didn't even ask the question for that one. He just guessed Jesse the Body and it was right. That was kind of ridiculous. And then the Rock Lobster gets his final point for the year, December 23rd. For Dune. Last week we had, of course, no winner. And that brings us to our total for the year and our epic 80s Trivia Championship winner, Uncle Mike Tosaw. Congratulations, taking the 2024 game by a commanding, a dominant 26 points to 16. A 10-point victory, Uncle Mike. Congratulations. How do you feel?
I want to thank everybody that was involved in this. This is a team effort. I have my staff that gives me information right as Mark asks the questions. And no, I'm just kidding. Very excited, very happy. Thank you. Kids, for those of you kids listening out there, and I know we have a lot of teenagers, your dreams can come true just like mine have. Keep working.
A couple of highlights stand out to me. Obviously, the epic Patriots rant was pretty good. Guessing Jesse the Body, with absolutely no question, was a pretty good one as well. And just in general, the 10-point margin of victory, I don't think we've ever had that before. That was pretty commanding. So Rock Lobster, you got your work cut out for you as we head on into 2025 and right into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
Whew, all right, that was exhausting, listeners. You wouldn't believe how much work goes in behind the scenes to actually tabulate all of that fun, make sure everything is correct. Oh, wait, we missed a show here. What about this one? What about that one? A lot of work goes into that 80s trivia challenge. You know, 99.9% of you love it, so that's why we do it out there. We have to come up with a fun challenge for 2025. Well, we'll get to all that fun in a second. Is there fun being had in the markets today? It seems like if you're in the Uncle Mike camp, you're having quite the day out there. Most of the major indices were firmly and still are firmly in the green, if they are coming off a little bit off their highs. As we kicked off the show, the S&P was firmly north of 6,000, about 6,018. So back over the 6K level, listeners. It seemed like maybe we had waved goodbye to that for a little while. But the last couple of sessions been pretty optimistic. Coming back down the other way now, but ever so slightly. Only, I say only in air quotes, up 0.9% now. NASDAQ up about 1.5%, also coming slightly off its highs for the day. And the Dow up about 0.4% after getting about a couple of hundred points higher out there as well. VIX, when we kicked off the show, was at about 15.75. Puts it down about exactly 3 points from where we were on our last show. Of course, that has ticked up a little bit as we started doing our trivia challenge there. It's up to about 16.15 now. So getting a little bit frothier as the worm turns to the dark side. But we can only go to one man today to kick things off. That is our 80s trivia challenge winner. If you have any final enduring memories of your championship run, have at it, sir. And then B, what's catching your eye if you want a gift, today's market is a gift for the Uncle Mike Bull, sir. Have at it.
No doubt about it. Yeah, it was a fun year to say the least. Really enjoyed it. Enjoyed the competition. Enjoyed, quite frankly, everything about it. Enjoyed the fact that you allowed me to speak my mind when I felt that things were unfair. I don't know if you listened or not. I think you didn't, but still, I was allowed to speak my mind. But had a lot of fun with it. Where else on planet Earth can you have a show to where, I was just talking with my daughter. She's like, so my dad, what he does he has a podcast. And, what does he talk about in his podcast? Derivative option trading, of course. Oh, okay. Anything else? Well, 80s trivia, professional wrestling. I mean, what else? And so I'm thinking about that. I'm willing to bet that at my daughter's school, no one else has a dad that does what I do. So how cool is that? That's how unique this show actually is. Would you guys not agree?
I say that to my kid all the time. All these kids love content creators. He's always showing me his TikTok and YouTube guy. I said to him, you realize I create content for a living as well, and I have been doing so for decades. Been one of the top podcasters on the planet for a very long time. But hey, I digress. It's hard to impress your own kids at the end of the day.
Very true. Very true. Well, what's not impressing me right now is the fact that this market is actually pulling back from the highs of the day. I was really hoping that we could just continue to go higher and higher and higher, but the highs of the day were put in a couple hours ago. And so we're kind of right back to where we started in the market now. So we need to say good things about the market during the show so we can get the option block bump, if you will. But anyway, in looking at these, just some points of note. I do want to emphasize, in my opinion, this is the real first day of trading for the year. I understand last Thursday was the real first day of trading, but this is the first time that we have a full week with no interruptions. We're not coming off the holidays. People aren't still in the Hamptons or whatever the case may be. This is actually the first full day for the full week of trading. So I think this is a pretty important day. I'm sorry, the S&P is up just under 1% on the day. So that is pretty exciting. We were above 6,000 again earlier in the day, but we're back to 59.97 as I'm looking at my real-time quotes right now. So definitely a positive thing on the day, but we're not quite at the highs. Some of the individual names that I'm looking at right now, Taiwan Semiconductors having a huge day on the day, up almost 6% on the day at the 220 level. Some other names that I'm looking at, Qualcomm is up 3% on the day. Microsoft's up 1% on the day, up $4. So we are getting a little bit of a bump in the technology land. Some other names of note with which I'm looking at, NVIDIA up $7 on the day today. So people got back into town from the Hamptons. What the heck? Let's just buy a couple million shares of NVIDIA. Why not? That seems to be the theme of NVIDIA anyway. Apple is actually holding on, and by holding on, they are up $1.60 on the day, so they're not going down anymore. But Apple has definitely pulled back from the 260 level where they were just recently. And so in looking at this overall, I think that we're getting a little bit of a rally in the very familiar rallying names. And just overall, I think that we're off to a good start. We have silver up a little bit on the day, and bonds are flat. So good day one day down. What do we have? 238 more days to go or something like that. And we will take it from there.
Yeah, NVIDIA making up for a little bit of lost time here, and like maybe the fact that people were weighing on them towards the end of the year. Obviously, some profit taking. Also, the Chinese regulators were looking askance at them. A lot of people were concerned about that. Apparently, all those concerns are gone. NVIDIA on the rampage. Of course, it is CES time. They usually get a little bit of a bump around that time as well. In fact, if you recall in the history of this show, NVIDIA's had many lives on the course of this show. And of course, one of the second, third legs, of course, we had the crypto leg. Now it's the AI leg. Before that, heading into the crypto leg, actually, they got their first leg up, really talking about their chips for mobile. That came out of CES years ago. So that was the first time we said, oh, really, NVIDIA's kind of on the run here. What's going on? And that was all coming out of CES, and them talking about their ability to leverage their chips for mobile and a bunch of other things. So they've had many lives over there, and apparently it is still in full swing with the CES bump. But let's see if the Rock Lobster has a bump for us. Mr. Rock Lobster was catching your eye in, at least for now, still a green day for the markets.
Well, kind of like 2024, except for a couple of days. It's like another upside volatility day. I think NVIDIA is just like, we are going to release a new chip. It's going to be awesome, and it's going to cost you all a bloody fortune. And it's weird because I know some smart people, and they're like AI is going to just put a lot of people out of work, like self-driving trucks and but generally technology has been good for employment historically to get where we are, right? You could argue that there's never been more employed people on the planet than there is right now. But it could definitely, cause some. There's always going to be disruption, and right now, okay, NVIDIA is just like Mark used to calls it the vampire stock. It's just going to suck up all the money, which is kind of hard to believe in a global economy with billions of people and everything like that. But it appears, at least for today, that's what's happening. So, semiconductors hard at this point. But, what's funny is you're probably old enough to remember, Tosaw is, but in the old days, there used to be a semiconductor cycle. Do you guys remember that? Like people would want chips and then, they'd make too many chips and there wouldn't be enough. And then the computer demand went down like after 2000, after the tech crash in 2008, you had that. We have not had a semiconductor demand drop, and I can't even remember at this point. So it used to be you needed a semiconductor to run your computer or whatever, and now you need it to run your AI plant or whatever your system is. Like the demand for them is just kind of going through the moon. Besides just driving a car with way too many damn chips in it, which drives me nuts. But like you look at it right now and you look at the socks or you look at the SM shaking my head, and it's making all-time highs or not all-time highs, but getting back up there. But definitely making a huge move, like massive candle. So is selling more chips good for the economy? I would say yes. Obviously, it'd be nice if more of that manufacturing was in the U.S., which I think is slowly coming because after COVID, companies are starting to say, well, maybe having all that stuff offshore, there's risk there. But at least for right now, NVIDIA is going to have an announcement and the market, I just relief rally to 6,000. It does feel like 6,000 is the new magnet point in the market, meaning like it's been hard for us to break too far above it and too far below it. And I think at this point, 6,000 has been sort of the, every new administration has a euphoria at the beginning, and then 6,000 was kind of feels like our rallying point. We're there, and now like what makes us go above that? Who knows? I don't know. But you want to see some news, and just a little side news that Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, resigned. So he did such a good job that he just had to resign. So anyway. Besides that, maybe that's a harbinger of change. So we'll see how that goes. But at least for right now, tech is still the story. Tech was the story in 2024, and AI led the resurgence out of the kind of the sell-off in 2022. So, I mean, Qs were up 30% last year, and you look at a day like today, and you're like, wow, they can be up another 10, 15, 20% next year. This year. So again, with demand is there, they ain't going down.
Let's see if demand is there for the rest of the options market today, listeners. And the answer is, yeah, it's a decent day, all things considered, and certainly a banger in certain pockets. We'll get there in a second. VIX finally coming out of the gate a little bit more respectable after kind of languishing the last few weeks. Again, it is the end of the year. No one really expects a lot, but VIX seemed like it forgot to just turn on some of these sessions. So making up for a little bit of lost time today. 428,000 contracts on the tape out there in VIX land today. The ADV 691. So it looks more impressive when you see it at that seasonally light 691,000 contract. What's the big dog out there today? 45,000 of the Jan 15 puts, as well as 31,000 of the April 40s, 4-0s. So interesting action out there today in VIXland, listeners. As we keep on rolling, let's go out to, is SPY having a banger? The answer is yes, 6.6 million SPY on the rampage, as the kids say. The ADV 7.43 million, so might hit that not that long after the end of the show today. So yeah, wild day for SPY. The S, something similar, 2.25 million contracts. That's fully 500,000 more than we expect this time of day. So the S, feeling its oats out there today as well. The ADV about 3.2 million. Small caps also looking robust. 952,000 contracts on the tape. The ADV 1.53 million listeners. And the Q's also looking hot out of the gate, 2.8 million. The ADV, 4.01 million. Is it a hot single name day? The answer also most decidedly yes. 424,000. It's been a little while since we sniffed 400K to break into the top 10. That gets us to our old pal, Micron. You know it's a banger day when Micron's feeling its oats. Up 11 and a quarter, 12.5%, trading 101 pretty much today. Banger day here for Micron. So apparently after dumping a lot of these names at the end of the year, everyone decided, no, we gotta put them back on. Here we go. Let's go right back in, ride that chip run that the Rock Lobster was just talking about. 12.5% in one day for Micron. That's a good year for Micron. So Micron kicking us off out of the gate, 424,000 contracts. Number 9, right above it, 435,000 for the Amazonians, 227, up 277. That's a lot of sevens, listeners, or about 1.25%. Good for 435,000 contracts. And the number 9 spot for the Amazonians, number 8, Super Micro Computer Inc., aka SMCI, about $37, up about 370 today, or about 11% out there today. Good for number 8, 454,000. Number 7, FUBO TV. You're saying, what? FUBO TV? Yeah, they're having a banger. 478, up 3 1/3, about 232%. They have sorted out their issues with Disney, apparently, merging them, I believe, with their Hulu live TV service. Either way, the stock market liking it. FUBO today, 505,000 contracts. And you know what? Let's not pass up an opportunity. I don't think we've ever really scanned FUBO on the show before. What do you think the hot option is today in FUBO TV? I'm going to probably guess it's some calls. What strike is the question? I probably would have said maybe, given where we are, the 5s, but it's actually the 4s at the number 1 spot. 60,000 of those to number 1, all opening. My favorite, the 5s, number 2, 46,000. And then that's not enough. How about the 7s? 44,000 of those bad boys. These are all Jan, by the way. So people are feeling their oats for FUBO. Let's look really quick. What are folks paying for the 7s? 14 cents. I got up as high as 37 cents. Oh, 50 cents someone paid for the 7s. Ooh, with the stock pretty much right here, a little bit higher. Man, 50 cents for the 7s. Gotta have it. You like those at 50 cents? I like them better for 14, I'll say that. Someone got those, got the scoop of the day there, but still, that's, either way, the 7s are a long way to go. I don't know if any of those are a scoop, but 50 cents, ooh. That's FUBO, number 7, listeners. 505,000 contracts. Number 6, the monster returns, listeners. MicroStrategy. If everything else is popping, you know MicroStrategy's popping. $27, or about 8%, 366, 66. A lot of 6s there, listeners. Good for a number 6, good old MicroStrategy, 535. Number 5, Palantir, not feeling the love today. 76.15, off 3 3/4, or about 5%. So apparently they didn't get the memo they're supposed to rally. Well, I guess they did earlier. They got up to about $80 even today, and then the bottom just got cut out from under them after that. So Palantir, 627 on the tape. Good for number 5, but not a good day for the Palantir Bulls. Number 4, AMD. You know, they got to be popping, right? 130.20, up about 482, or about 3.8%. Good for number 4, 648,000 contracts. Number 3 is the Fruit Company, 244.90, up about $1.50, or about 2/3%. They got up as high as 247 1/3 earlier this morning before the warm started to turn for them as well. Number 3, the Fruit Company, also 666. A lot of 6s on the tape today. Number 2, listeners, it's Tesla, 405 1/3. Yes, it can sell off post-election. Off 420, appropriately enough. 406 1/4 is where it's trading, off about 1%. Tesla, 1.53 million on the tape. And the big dog, looking pretty big again. It's our old pal, NVIDIA. 5.05 million. It's been a while. It's been pretty much since NVIDIA earnings that we've seen numbers like this. Up 5%, or 7 1/4 today. Year to date, NVIDIA is up almost 12% already, 11.5%, 151. So gone are the days where people were thinking this thing was maybe going to start coming back down to earth, given the fact that, you know, China's looking at them askance a little. That's never a good thing, but apparently today it is 5.05 million. Was it a good year on the options front? The answer was yes. The Flowmaster kind of broke some of these numbers down for us. We'll do a quick run through for you folks as well. Obviously, December and 2024 in general looking pretty hot. December coming in, total volume on the options front up 20.3% for a total volume of 1.1, effectively 1.09 billion with a B. I'm used to saying million, but billion, 1.09 billion with the B contracts. That's a hot month. That brings us to a hot year, listeners. Total volume come out of OCC. We finally have the official numbers. What the Flowmaster was running off was the unofficial total, even though his numbers are pretty close as well. 12.28 billion contracts on the tape, listeners, up 10.6% from 11.1 billion this time a year ago. So a banger year yet again. Again, total volume up 10.6%. Futures, so mostly VIX futures there, up 7.7% on the year. Index options continuing to have good runs, 8.9% increase there from about 959 million to 1.04 billion contracts. ETF options, the lone laggard in the group, up only 4%. I say only in air quotes. And then equity options kind of making up for lost time. They had a weak, modest 2023 and now popping this year 16.1% from 5.6 billion to 6.5 billion. So a good year across the board with certain pockets looking very good out there. Is the odd activity, the odd block looking good, listeners? Let's go find out.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, if you heard the Thursday show, you know the Flowmaster and I did some looking back on the year that was 2024 from an odd block perspective. I have my thoughts and the trades that stand out to me. I will continue my analysis and breakdown of those in a second. But Mr. Rock Lobster, I want to give you your chance, sir. As you look back on the year's worth of odd activity, are there any trades or trends that really stand out to you, sir?
Oh, gosh. It's always hard to remember something that stands out. I have to say, I'm terrible at this. I can't remember. I put so many trades out. It's hard for me to remember one standout. Although the only I would say, I just feel like we had a little bit more, a little return of some meme stock action this year. Just some more high flying stuff, but individual options, I just can't remember. Like, I want to say like those silly puts, but the Credit Suisse thing was like, I feel like a year or 2 years ago. So kind of hard. I can't pin anything for right now, sadly.
This is why you lose our trivia challenges. Your memory not the best.
And I think that's the problem.
Well, I'll give you a week to mull, sir, and see if you can come back next week with some highlights while I continue my breakdown that I started on the Thursday show. As you know, listeners, we could do probably a full week's worth of nonstop shows just regaling all the activity that interested us just here on the Odd Block, let alone on oddities. Another couple of names and trends that stood out to me last year, kind of building on what I talked about with the Flowmaster on Thursday. Another name, we rolled through to about, I'd say about March or April on the Thursday show. April, another name that caught my eye was Coupang, ticker symbol CPNG. This was a hot name last year, trading $22 right now, off about 34 cents. On the year, it's had a run. It was $16 exactly a year ago, so it's up $6 or 38% on the year. When we talked about it last April, it was actually April 22nd. The stock was $21.34, so not that dissimilar from where it is right now. And somebody came in late April, April 22nd, and said, hey, you know, I'm feeling the love. I'm feeling the oats for these Coupang calls, baby. I got to have them. They said June 22.5 calls. How are they? They got $1.33 at $1.36. They said, I will pay $1.36 7,000 times with the stock at $21.34. This was on April 22nd. Worth noting, they had earnings coming up about a couple of weeks later on May 7th. So that was obviously the catalyst for this trade. The stock was $21.95 when they put on the trade. And guess where the stock closed? That's where it was when I said before, $21.34. So by my math, listeners, they were not north of the 22 half strike. And they didn't really have much of a chance to get out of these. It looks like the top was, they got up to about 23.65 on May 7th, the actual earnings date. So I suppose if there was a time to get out in hindsight, that obviously was it. Unfortunately, these fellows or ladies did not take that opportunity. These calls were still open on expiration. So looks like paper threw away close to $1 million, about 950 grand on this swing for the upside fences in Kupang. Now, this is the name we also talked about earlier in the year on April 12th. A similar trade, which is why it comes up on our year in review. Folks were kind of swinging for the upside in Kupang, but the first time we talked about him, it actually worked out. On February 12th, somebody came in and scooped 4,375 of the May 16s. This is back when the stock was $15.04. They paid about $1.07 for those, so that was not nothing. They were lifting the offer on those bad boys, about a 45 vol. They did about 13,000 on the day, and they started out looking pretty good. Obviously, just given that chart I just talked about, they started from 16. By the time expiration rolled around, they were 21 and change. So they've had a good run. So if you scoop in some calls on February 12th, you're probably going to do all right. Looks like they ended up rolling these on February 27th to up to the 19. So they dumped their 16s for $2, $2.05. That's a good do. Pay $1.06, so you pretty much doubled your money. But then they came back and bought the 19s again for 84 cents and also bought what looks like a 16, 14 half put spread for about, looks like 33 cents out there. So in terms of how that first leg worked out, looks like they probably did all right on those calls there as well. Even though 19, you were kind of playing with fire a little bit. But looking here on this chart here, yeah, like we said, May 7th was the earnings date. They got up to 23.65. So I'm guessing they probably did all right on the 19s. Obviously, they threw away some money on the put spread, but you never get mad at somebody for hedging. So it looks like they had a twofer here. But then somebody came back. Maybe it was the same folks in April. They were feeling their oats, and that's when they got burned, unfortunately. So they flew a little too close to the sun for Kupang. Also in April, we saw our largest line in the sand put trade for the year, listeners. This is out in our old pal, Warner Brothers Discovery. If you listen to some of our oddities show on the pro side as well, some of our episodes there, you know Warner Brothers Discovery has been kind of a place for some weird paper for the last couple of years, ever since that deal went through. We've seen super sizable, very tight collars and other funky trades we don't see that often, and for size. And this is another one here. This is more straightforward, just sizable. On April 22nd, we saw somebody come in just blasting away on the 7 puts. The stock was $8.35 at the time. Somebody said, hey, May 7 puts expiring at the end of the month on the 31st. How are these bad boys? And they got 11 cents at 13. They said, I will sell 83,950. They actually got price improvement at 11.5 cents. So that's a pretty firm market. They'll take down 83,000 and give you a little bit of price improvement, 11.5 cents to boot. So not bad. I'll tip my cap to the market makers on that one. The stock was $8.35 when they sold these. So the 7 puts also not that close to being in the money. So that probably helped a little bit with it. This was on April 22nd. They had earnings on May 9th. So clearly earnings were a catalyst for these as well. Yeah, obviously not taking a ton home, 11.5 cents, but you do anything 84,000 times. It could leave a mark on your account or be memorable at the end of the day at the very least. The stock ended up closing, Mr. Rock Lobster, at $8.24 on expiration. So by my math, that is above the 7 handle. All of these puts were still open. So they made about $1 million, $965,000. It may not sound a lot, but it's only 11.5 cents that they got, but they did it 84,000 times. So they ended up doing all right. Mr. Rock Lobster, I know you remember a line in the sand or two, and this was the biggest one we talked about, at least in single names last year. Does this one stand out to you, or any of the weird paper we talked about in Warner Brothers Discovery last year, sir?
Yeah, actually, I did remember this just because we were kind of like agog on the size. Like in the old days, I thought 800 puts used to be a lot. Now they sell like 85,000 puts. So this one did stand out. And I do have a little position in Warner Brothers now. I thought a stock that easily go from $10 to $15 at some point. So, but yeah, I would like to see Mr. Line in the Sand back at this point, but it was, I mean, I guess you could say, is that a hard way to make $1 million or an easy way to make $1 million?
It's kind of a wild way to make just $1 million. You look at it.
Let's just say it is a way to make $1 million.
It's a lot of contracts. It's a lot of maybe sweating and a lot of margin for $1 million. You're right. Not even 965.
What would that be? Like 54 million bucks?
Yeah, it's a chunk of change.
And like half of that'd be 34 million. So I mean, he got a return on his margin.
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, no one's gonna look askance at 965 in the bank, but yeah, there's maybe easier ways to go about it.
Yeah, and again, this is like classic where it's hard to believe that Warner Brothers is only worth after they merge, I think it's worth less in market cap. I think Warner Brothers or Discovery Channel. The Discovery Channel is worth less in market cap, I believe, than it was before the merger, when they were separated and they just bought all this stuff from AT&T. And anyway, I have to look at that because I can't remember exactly what the market cap of Discovery Channel was, but they didn't gain a whole lot by adding the whole entire Warner Brothers catalog. Which is quite amazing. So anyway, maybe Hollywood will start making good movies again that I could go watch.
Talk that Netflix may buy, not Netflix, Universal or / Comcast may buy the Warner Brothers part at least, maybe spin off the rest.
Yeah, so very, very, anyway, but that's, we'll see if a massive media behemoth, but I don't know how they've been taking write-downs now for I don't know how long. What's funny too is remember that guy, Bill Wang, took that stock up to like $75.
Yeah,
that one guy, he bought all those. He tried to corner some of those shares.
Topped out at 77 and a quarter on March 19th of 2021. Oh, that's a long way away now.
It does feel like a long way away. So anyway, but this was a huge. Oh God, time is flying. But yes, I do remember this as that. That is the biggest sale that I can remember. Just for reference, like, Susquehanna put up the biggest put sale years ago in like 2097. It was like 4,000 Dell puts. And we're like, wow, that is huge. And now they're trading, 10, 20 years later, trading 85,000 contracts. So
see, listeners, I knew
different world.
I knew that would jog his memory. You just need 84,000 puts to go up, and he'll remember it, listeners. As it's time for us to go right on into the strategy block.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the Strategy Block.
All right, Uncle Mike, we have been running long, but we saved you some time for the block of strategy, your first official one for the year. What you got for us?
Have your plan set for the year before you actually execute it. So in other words, January is a time to where people try new things. And what I want to emphasize to everyone is there's consequences and benefits, of course, to long-term, short-term capital gains. I want to emphasize the fact that there are consequences and benefits for time frame selection when selecting strike prices. If you are going long or going short options, or even spreads, obviously, for that matter, make sure you map out the entire thing before you actually get into anything as you go. Short and sweet today, but we are short on time, and that is the first strategy block. Actually, the second strategy block for 2025.
First official Monday strategy block of 2025 as we keep on going around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, listeners, as we come into the end of the show here, the rally is mitigating a bit again. The S&P is up about 0.75% only. I say only 0.75%, so coming well off its highs for the day. The Dow is up only about 0.2%, so Dow looking like it might be heading to flat for the day. NASDAQ up about 1.25%. VIX still hanging around 16.15 where we were at the start of the show out there. We will pay off more, obviously, odd block fun on future shows. There's just a ton of it, listeners. So look forward to more fun. Also look forward to more return of our VIX closing year, I should say VIX end of the year guessing game. A lot of you folks played along with that last year. We will reveal the results. We were going to do it on Vol Views this past week. We just ran out of time. We're going to do it this week. Don't worry. There are some winners. We will reveal you. So start getting your VIX guessing models in order, listeners. You too can win fabulous prize. I think that poll may go live even later today, so stay tuned for that. And Mr. Rock Lobster, what are you staying tuned for in the markets for the rest of the week?
Well, it looks like we might have an election certification today. and getting ready for earnings coming, starting to come hot and heavy next week. So I think this should be a relatively quiet period. Be interesting to see what all the inflation data and all this other stuff comes, and when we have a change of regime. But anyway, I don't think there's a lot different under politics. So I don't expect anything earth-shattering, but who knows? Could be interesting.
It can't be election certification day. No one's rioting in the streets. There's no pitchforks and flames and angry mobs. It's just
I guess not. I think there's like eight diehards out there.
I guess when your guy wins, they don't riot. So that's how it works.
Apparently, that's the deal. They only riot when the other guy wins.
Ah, yes. Don't get me started on that fun, Mr. Uncle Mike, sir. What are you keeping an eye on for the rest of the week?
I mean, just seeing how close we can stay to the 6,000 magnet, seeing if we can go through it, stay near it, whatever the case may be. Pretty laser focused on 6,000 these days.
All right, and we are laser focused on the end of the show. But don't worry, if you want more in your lives, I'll be back in a little bit with our buddy Mr. Bill to break down all of the fun, and there was a lot of fun, in the crypto markets for the mad year that was 2024. So stay tuned for that in a little bit. Also back, obviously, on Thursday with the Flow Master to continue our odd block breakdown for the year. And Mr. Rock Lobster. Folks want more Rock Lobster goodness in their lives. Where should they go? What should they do?
There you go, optionpit.com. I'm gonna launch my Flash 5. So the very unreal, to be honest, winning strategy idea for 2024 will be, I've got some new stocks for 2025. So we'll be doing something next week on that. So come check it out when you see all the stuff. Links to come. And
I'm looking forward to your new newsletter of how to sell puts in Warner Brothers Discovery for 11.5 cents.
Exactly. As long as you sell 85,000.
Yeah, 85,000.
85,000 lots I love.
The keys to making money, the Rock Lobster newsletter, 85,000 lots in Warner Brothers Discovery. Check them out, listeners. Optionpit.com, the place to go to learn more. And Mr. Uncle Mike, where should they go to learn more about all your good goodies?
Head to my website, stcharleswealth.com, or follow me on Twitter at Mike Tosaw, Tosaw, if you're looking for a financial advisor who is not afraid of the option product.
There you go. Check them out, stcharleswealth.com. Listener, that's going to do it for us on the option block for our first Monday episode of the new year. Of course, back again later today with the Crypto Rundown. Back throughout the rest of the week with our usual array of content. Stay tuned to the Twitters. Our VIX end-of-year guessing game will go live soon. Fabulous prizes are in the offing. I was surprised at how precise and how prescient you folks were in your guesses for this year. So we'll reveal the results for that on Vol Views on Friday. Stay tuned for that. But before we get there, we'll be back on Thursday, Flow Master in hand, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Option Block is brought to you by CPNG. CPNG's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cpo.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of CBOE Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively CBOE. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the CBOE products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.